Hello, I'm meteorologist Rob Karlmark with your forecast for Northern California and the West Coast. And let me tell you something, it has been very busy going through the holidays. Things have backed off a little bit. And then now we're going to ease into a new stormy pattern. But in between, we've got a lot of cold weather to contend with. And that's really the story for this Monday. We've got some early morning fog for the valley and for the coastal locations. And I'm talking thick stuff, really thick stuff, hard to see. And it's really cold and frosty in many locations. And then for the foothills, we're just looking at a cold forecast, but overall sunny above that layer of clouds. And it's going to be a nice one. It's been busy lately, but things are going to certainly back off for the next couple of days at least. And then for the Sierra, you probably have heard about all the snow, more than 5 feet of snow for the resorts and the surrounding areas. Very busy holiday traffic, people stuck in snow on the road for 5, 6, 7 hours in some cases, trying to get to Tahoe. But now you see the result of that, the benefit. As far as rain in the bucket or melted snow and the rain equivalent, you could see all across Northern California, Central and Southern California. Wow, it's been a pretty good 2025 so far. Now, our rainy season is a little bit different around here. It begins October 1st instead of January 1st like it is for most locations. And so just going by those numbers, just since October, so essentially 2 months and a little bit in, you could see how far above average we are. So we're in pretty good shape. We had a lull for about 3 weeks where nothing happened. It was in the 40s with clouds all day long. I was here, trust me, it was kind of grim and gloomy, but that broke up with that huge wet pattern. Now we're just taking a couple days off. You could see from this vantage point, it's clear skies, but at the ground level, there's two things, and they're layered one on top of the other. Number one is going to be the first frost advisory that we've seen so far this season. So that's that purple color. And then underneath that, a dense fog advisory where you have visibility a quarter mile or less. So it's cold, it's hard to see, tough to get out of bed, especially on a Monday. Now, that will eventually clear off as we get some warming, some wind, and some mixing. And then you're looking at temperatures that will be roughly within this zone. For the foothills, some sunshine, highs in the 50s, 54 for Jackson, 59 Nevada City. We've got 42 for Truckee, 42 South Lake Tahoe. A lot of folks have the week off, and they're rewarded with sunny skies and lots of great skiing. Early season, grim. Since that snow, a lot of places are opening up, more lifts, more terrain. It's all looking pretty good and much more favorable after Christmas forecast going into the end of the year, especially with more snow on the way. Although there is a little wrinkle, which I'll show you in a second. Temperatures along the coast in the 60s. We've got mostly 50s inland. Again, that fog is going to burn off, and then we're looking pretty good for areas in and around Sacramento because it's so cold in the morning, number one, and then also the fog is not really breaking up until right around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. That only gives you several hours of sunshine from about noon till 3, 4, and then we're going to start to see the sun go down and everybody cool off. So here's our wrinkle in the forecast. Between Wednesday and very early Thursday, notice that it's all green. You really only see the snow for the highest peak. So we've got a lot of warm air getting drawn in for just a couple days. So it's mostly rain for all elevations, and then it will switch over to snow going into the weekend and beyond. So it's going to take a little while, but we're eventually going to get there. As you can see, that mountain forecast hovering in the 40s with some rain. Not ideal, but at least early week skiing is going to be great. Later in the week, a little bit of rain mixed in, and that's going to be warmer temperatures for our Friday. 60 degrees for the high, but look what goes on into the weekend. We've got cooling conditions and then more rain/snow going into next week.
Hi everyone, I'm meteorologist Noorani in San Diego. A dry start to our work week, but rain on the way as we get to New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. We started off the day with some high cirrus clouds and some wind. Santa Ana's are breezy yet again today as that ridge of high pressure sits to the east of us and a trough of low pressure to the west of us, setting us up perfectly for that offshore pressure gradient. Live look, or at least look from earlier this morning, showed that just some cirrus clouds were on hand, maybe some filtered sunlight through the next 24 and 48 hours. A wind advisory stays in effect through 1 p.m. on Tuesday. This is for our inland valleys and the western slopes of the mountains. As that wind comes out from the deserts, it warms up as it compresses over the western slopes of the mountains and then just sits across the valley floors. Rainfall forecast shows that changes are going to be on the way very quickly as we get into Wednesday. But for Monday and Tuesday, hey, we just have those passing clouds for the most part. That rain begins as we jump into Wednesday morning. Take a look at all that green popping up primarily over the mountains at first. It looks like what we see on Wednesday, New Year's Eve, is much less intense than what we have on Thursday, New Year's Day, because as we run through that countdown time frame, so parties and festivities all kind of getting underway by the 7 o'clock hour on Wednesday, you can see some very light dabbles of green on there, meaning that we'll have overcast skies, we'll have cooler than normal temperatures, and we will likely at that point start to see just some mist and drizzle. But take a look at how things intensify just past midnight. That's where the more moderate bands start to come on shore, mainly hitting North County at first. 1:45 a.m. looks like this, and it seems like beyond that we'll start to pick up on the more moderate showers. So if you have plans past midnight to stay out and about through 1, 2 a.m., that's when you might start to encounter some more moderate to heavy downpours of rain. Should look pretty similar to what we saw last week, just in time for New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Rainfall estimates are projected to be about an inch in Fallbrook, same with Oceanside and Carlsbad. As you start to make your way south, that's where we start to see those lighter accumulations. So closer to about just 0.4 of an inch, 0.3 in Alpine, and the mountains staying really mild overall. This looks to be mainly a coastal event hitting North County disproportionately than what we see out toward the South Bay. 7-day forecast just shows that with that wind in play, those Santa Anas, we're staying breezy and we're seeing those temperatures stay in the warmer than normal range for today and tomorrow. We warm up even more for tomorrow afternoon, all the way up to 79 degrees, and then about a 10 to maybe almost 15 degree temperature cool down as we get to the end of the week. Temperatures stay in the mid 60s starting on Wednesday. They'll last all the way through at least Sunday. Daily chance for rain from Wednesday through Sunday as well. What I want to hone in here too is that while we see that wet weather begin and really peak on Thursday, that doesn't necessarily mean that we get to dry skies on Friday through the weekend. Instead, that rain lingers for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. In fact, some models show as we go into the beginning of next week, we'll still be holding on to those bouts of precipitation. Because this is a warmer storm coming from the subtropics, we are going to be seeing those temperatures above freezing for our local mountains. So despite the fact that those temperatures slide down to the 40s, maybe even the 30s from Friday into Saturday, we don't really get to sub-freezing until things have dried out into the beginning of next week. The deserts are going to stay in the 70s for today and tomorrow and sliding down to the 60s as this storm starts to come about. Rain starting to pick up as we get into Wednesday and peaking on Thursday.
Hey, I'm meteorologist Brenden Mincheff, and we're going to talk about what an atmospheric river is. It's a term you may have heard, you may not be familiar with it, but you may have heard the term Pineapple Express. Not every atmospheric river is a Pineapple Express. However, as we will learn, every Pineapple Express is a type of atmospheric river. So as we look at the map, these are most common along the U.S. West Coast, especially in the wintertime. However, other parts of the United States, including the Gulf Coast, and the Northeast, can see atmospheric rivers. In the Gulf of Mexico can act as that moisture source for atmospheric rivers moving up through the southeast and into the northeast. And sometimes you can get a nor'easter that can be attached to an atmospheric river. But let's jump into it. Let's look at the map. Well, when high pressure is sitting off the west coast, what that does is it kind of, for the most part, blocks the moisture from coming in. When high pressure slides a little bit further to the south, and especially when it's coupled with a storm passing through either British Columbia or the Pacific Northwest or even Northern California, what can happen is it can tap in to this atmospheric river. And what that is, it's a narrow band of moisture, about 1,000 miles long or so, and it can pull in a lot of tropical moisture into an area. For instance, this textbook example is showing it impacting California. And when that happens, it can bring a lot of rain. And if it's cold enough or your mountains are high enough, it can bring a lot of snow with it. This type of setup here, where it originates near Hawaii, is a Pineapple Express. Here's some more facts about atmospheric rivers. Atmospheric rivers carry 7.5 to 15 times the flow of the mouth of the Mississippi River. They vary. Some of them are stronger, some of them are weaker, but they are very, very wet systems, and that's why we get a lot of rain from these. And atmospheric river events are responsible for the majority of the water supply on the U.S. West Coast. Here is a satellite image of an atmospheric river. Again, this is a type of atmospheric river that we might call a Pineapple Express. It originates near Hawaii. High pressure sits here, and so it brings this moisture, for instance, here into California. But if your high pressure is a little bit further north, it can bring that moisture up into the Pacific Northwest. Again, this setup here is a Pineapple Express. So to be clear, a Pineapple Express is an atmospheric river that pulls moisture from Hawaii. But not every atmospheric river is a Pineapple Express. This one here, here's another example. You see the atmospheric river extending out from Hawaii, but that moisture is being pushed into the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia. So every Pineapple Express is an atmospheric river, but not every atmospheric river is a Pineapple Express. And we rank atmospheric rivers based on two things: by the amount of water in them and how long that atmospheric river is going to last. So a weak or level 1 atmospheric river is primarily beneficial, not a lot of flood risk, relatively the same for a level 2 moderate atmospheric river. By the time we start talking about a level 3, AR3 on the scale here, that's a stronger atmospheric river. It's both equal parts beneficial and hazardous, but as soon as you start working your way up in strength to category AR category 4, AR category 5 on the scale, well, that means now we're talking about atmospheric rivers that are mostly hazardous or primarily hazardous, meaning they have so much moisture and they're going to last for so long that the flood risk is much higher.